Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's debate. My name is Lyle Harris and I'm the chairman, and Sylvia Lim is the timekeeper. The debate will be judged by a panel of 3 adjudicators, who are Miss Lowen, Miss Quire, and Miss Coldwell. The topic for tonight's debate is that UniBar Adelaide should have allowed infected mushroom to perform. The affirmative team seated to my right is from Concordia College, and the negative team seated to my left is from St. Columba College. The speaking time for tonight's debate is 5 minutes, with a double bell at the end of your speaking time. A warning bell will ring once at 4 minutes. A continuous bell will ring 30 seconds after the final bell. Please switch off your mobile phones and other electronic devices. I now declare this debate open. I call upon the first affirmative speaker, Amelia Murphy.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that UniBar Adelaide should have allowed infected mushroom to perform. We, the affirmative team, indisputably believe that this statement is true. As the affirmative team, we define UniBar Adelaide according to the University of Adelaide as a private live music venue and bar located at the university that serves food, drinks and hosts live music and arts performances. As stated by Cambridge Dictionary, we define allow as to permit or give permission for something to take place, especially when there is no valid reason to prevent it. Lastly, we define infected mushroom according to the resident advisor as an electric music group formed in the late 1990s, known internationally for their psychedelic trance and electronic dance music. To give context to this topic, UniBar Adelaide cancelled Infected Mushrooms live music show because of infected mushroom support for the Israel Defence Force. We, as the affirmative team, interpret this topic to mean the University of Adelaide's bar and music venue should have given permission for the electronic music duo Infected Mushroom to take place and perform. Tonight, as your first speaker, I'll be talking to you about 2 points. Firstly, how bands and all people should have the freedom of artistic expression. I will also be talking to you about how the band has not been proven of wrongdoing. Our second speaker, Nevada, will be addressing the fans and economic impact of the cancellation and the rights of private businesses. Our third speaker, Ilsa, will rebut and sum up our team's case. Now to my first point, that bands and all people should have the right to artistic freedom. According to Farida Shahid from UNESCO, artistic expression is not a luxury. It is a necessity and a defining element of our humanity. It is a fundamental human right enabling everyone to develop and express their humanity. This means that music is a way of entertainment and it goes beyond politics and ethnicity. Music brings people together instead of pushing them apart. According to a recent Guardian article, the venue itself even clarified that it was apolitical and supports everyone's right to opinion. By denying Infected Mushroom the ability to perform, UniBar directly contradicted this principle, allowing politics to overrule music and art. Furthermore, the PEN International, for a leading human rights and artistic freedom organisation, states that artistic expression should be protected as a vital part of free expression. Bans, censorships and restrictions on artistic works because of political or national identity are violations of this right. This conveys that cancelling Infected Mushroom's performance simply because of external political pressures is a violation of their fundamental rights to artistic expression. UniBar should have prioritised music and creativity over politics, giving artists much room to play. Now to my second point, that Infected Mushroom have not been proven of wrongdoing. There is no evidence that can prove this band is involved in any illegal or harmful activities. Multiple sources, including official bio, EDM.com interview, and the resident advisor biography, all conducted interviews on this band, and none of them included any passage that states that they have engaged in anything illegal or harmful. Why would anyone cancel their show if they aren't even dangerous or could hinder people's safety? In fact, according to Psychedelic magazine, Infected Mushroom never even mentioned the Israeli Defence Force or anything to do with it in their songs. With all of this evidence, it becomes incredibly clear that cancelling their performance was completely unjustified. In addition, according to the Arts Law Centre the Arts Law Centre of Australia, individuals should not face restrictions or censorship without verified wrongdoing. This tells us that the infected mushrooms should have been allowed to perform as there was no proven reason to prevent it. Freedom of expression is a right, not a privilege that can be removed. This sets a dangerous precedent where live music venues can cancel on other bands without solid evidence. The advertiser states that infected mushrooms music is not political in any way. They are only being creative and making music. To suggest otherwise is completely unjustified and undermines both their artistic integrity and their right to perform. In conclusion, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we the Affirmative team undeniably believe that UniBar should have allowed infected mushroom to perform. And as Hans Christian Andersen once said, where words fail, music speaks. Music speaks to all of us in ways that words alone cannot. And for these reasons, we, the Affirmative team, unquestionably believe that this statement is true. Thank you.
I call upon the first negative speaker, Laura Okoye.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that UniBar Adelaide should have allowed infected mushrooms to perform. We agree with the definition provided by the affirmative team, but we as a negative team firmly disagree with this statement. I would now like to highlight some flaws in the opposition's case. The first speaker of the affirmative team wants to say that music should not be political, but the word shows otherwise. Music is always political. Think of Beyonce's Formation, which became an anthem for Black Lives Matter, or Childish Gambino's This Is America, which directly confronted gun violence and racism. These songs weren't just entertainment, they were signs of movement, they were anthems. Even UniBar itself recognized this when it stated that platforming is not a neutral act. It signals alignment, even tacitly. Hosting an artist is never just about music. It's about what the community stands for. Pretending otherwise ignores the very real power art has to influence, divide, or unify people. Now to my first point, the ripple effect and shared responsibility. Picture this, 1 gig at UniBar, a few hundred people, a night of music, and some posts on Instagram. Harmless, right? But zoom out. That 1 gig becomes part of a global pattern. A Western venue hosting an Israeli act during genocide. Those Instagram posts become a symbol of normalization, spreading into conversations on campuses and online communities, far beyond Adelaide. What looked like a local decision is suddenly shaping global discourse. This is exactly why UniBar's independence doesn't ultimately make it free from responsibility. Yes, since 2007, it has been outsourced and is now independently operated. But the University of Adelaide still owns the building and land, invests in refurbishments, set contract terms, and promotes it publicly as the University of Adelaide's UniBar. That connection means the UniBar's choice inevitably reflect on the university's values and reputation. And those values do matter. Since October 2023, as said by ABC News, over 60,000 Palestinians have been killed. When we see numbers like that on the scale, it shows us how neutrality is not possible. Because every platform given, every stage of it, risks normalizing violence by ignoring its human cost. In this context, hosting an Israeli act on a university-branded stage cannot be seen as neutral. As one scholar on cultural boycott explains, isolation in the form of sport, cultural and academic boycotts convey a clear signal that members of the international community are not neutral and passive observers, but active participants in a global struggle for human rights. Now to my second point, how this decision revolves around safety and values of inclusivity, not politics or religion. The decision to cancel the Infected Mushrooms performance wasn't about silencing anyone's identity or beliefs, nor was it a statement against Jewish people. UniBar themselves emphasized that it is an apolitical venue and stated that there was no compelling evidence that the band actively supports Zionist ideology. This clearly shows the decision was purely about context, not identity. The cancellation of the performance was a precaution to protect students and maintain inclusivity, not an attack on any religious or ethnic group. Statements from student bodies, like Adelaide Students for Palestine, show that students expect the university to take ethical responsibility in moments of international crisis. Encampments, petitions, and referenda demonstrate that the campus's community is actively engaged and attentive to humanitarian concerns. Research also shows that the political events can directly affect students' sense of safety and belonging. A 2024 Knight Foundation study found that 55% of students reported feeling uncomfortable due to political speech on campus. This underscores why universities must carefully consider how hosting international acts during highly sensitive political times might affect the broader student community. When the well-being and safety of students are at stake, should entertainment ever come first? In conclusion, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, UniBar Adelaide made a responsible choice by cancelling Infected Mushroom, prioritizing inclusivity, student safety, and ethical responsibility. Sometimes, leadership is measured not by what you allow, but the choices you make to protect your community, and in this case, protecting students was the right decision. Thank you.
I call upon the second affirmative speaker, Laura Mayer.
Good evening. Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that UniBar Adelaide should have let Infected Mushroom to perform. We, the affirmative team, strongly believe that this statement is inarguably true. I will now highlight the flaws in my opposition's case. The first speaker on the negative team have tried to tell you that their music will create a ripple effect. However, this is misleading and an exaggeration. According to the Human Rights Commission, freedom of expression is a core democratic value and should only be limited when absolutely necessary for safety or legality. Cancelling a music performance because of political pressure risks, setting a precedent where cultural events are censored rather than celebrated. Allowing Infected Mushroom to play would have respected students' right to enjoy art free from political interference, upheld by the UniBar's commitment to diversity of thought, and avoided turning a popular event into a divisive issue. According to the advertiser, the UniBar itself stated that they have not been presented with any compelling evidence that artists told or promote Zionist ideology. Our first speaker has convincingly argued that there should be freedom of artistic expression and how there was no proven wrongdoing. I, as your second speaker, will be talking to you about my two key points. Firstly, UniBar should have let Infected Mushroom perform as the cancellation had a negative economic impact. According to the advertiser, the event sold out, with the cheapest Adelaide ticket costing around $80. Approximately 500 people bought tickets, and when the show was cancelled, the UniBar refunded them, costing around $40,000. The advertiser also reported The fans were upset, quoting the EEF, Education Endowment Fund chose to bring politics into a dance festival environment, influenced by political agenda and driven by social media vitriol, hate and racial division that has ultimately divided the community and other fans. According to Good Music Month, the UniBar Adelaide also had to pay $120,000 to get Infected Mushroom to perform. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, was this really worth the cash splash for no return? Moreover, UniBar is not just a pub, it's the heart of student life on campus. It's where students go to connect, to celebrate, to hear live music, and to feel part of a community beyond the classroom. The Infected Mushroom show was completely sold out, bringing at least $40,000 in ticket revenue and an additional revenue from drink sales. That money could have gone straight back into UniBar funding, more student events, improving facilities, and keeping this campus social life vibrant. By cancelling, the organisers didn't just cut a concert, they cut into the very culture that makes university more than just lectures and exams. Instead of strengthening student life, they weakened it. Therefore, Infected Mushroom should have been allowed to perform at the UniBar Adelaide. Now to my second point. UniBar should have allowed Infected Mushroom to perform to uphold their contractual obligations. Cancelling a contracted performance is not just disappointing, it's legally and ethically problematic. According to the Australian Contract Law Guide, once a contract is signed, both parties are legally bound to deliver. UniBar breached their contract, and by doing so are legally required to pay the full artist fee of $120,000, even without the concert taking place. According to the Australian Live Music Office, live music events support a network of private businesses, including bar staff, production groups, security, and local vendors, all of whom which miss out on income when the events are cancelled. Cancelling a sold-out event also harms UniBar's reputation, with booking agencies and artists making it harder and more expensive to secure future acts. Upholding private business rights not only avoids legal and financial penalties, but also protects Adelaide's music economy and UniBar's status as a trusted live music venue. Therefore, UniBar Adelaide should have allowed Infected Mushroom to perform, as doing it would have saved them from significant financial, economic, and social repercussions. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, as the Human Rights Commission reminds us, freedom of expression is not just the right to speak, it's the right to listen, to perform, and to be heard. UniBar should have allowed Infected Mushroom to perform. Thank you.
Call upon the second negative speaker, Awel Malouf.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that UniBar Adelaide should have allowed Infected Mushroom to perform. We, the negative team, firmly disagree with this statement. I would now like to highlight some flaws in the opposition's arguments. The first speaker from the affirmative team stated that Infected Mushrooms should be able to express themselves freely. But as Bull reminded us, UniBar's decision stops the ripple effects of normalizing a conflict during a genocide, a true humanitarian crisis. Freedom of speech doesn't guarantee a platform. Venues have every right, and in this case, a duty to weigh safety, inclusivity, and global context before offering that platform. The first speaker from the affirmative team also stated that there is no evidence of Infected Mushroom being political. However, the origin of EDM, the type of music played by Infected Mushroom, is itself political. Early EDM bands formed as a direct response to fascist ideology and other political agendas, showing that EDM naturally has political alignment. The second speaker says that cancelling infected mushroom cut in university culture and disappointed fans. However, popularity doesn't override responsibility. A venue's top priority is always safety. According to the International Association of Venue Managers, making reasonable decisions as it relates to health and safety of all venues occupants is part of their core safety and security obligations. UniBar itself said that paramount is the safety of our staff, demonstrating that safety must rank above profit. One dangerous incident, a protest turning violent, or threats towards staff or attendees could irreparably damage the venue's reputation more than letting the show proceed and risk hurting the scandal. Now, I'd like to briefly revisit key arguments presented by our first speaker. Our first speaker, Boss, spoke about the ripple effect and how by cancelling infected mushroom, they were able to stop that effect before it even started. In her second point, she highlighted that cancelling was prioritizing safety and inclusivity. Tonight, I'll be discussing two key points: the extreme risk of disruption and division, as well as precedent and policy. Our third speaker, Phelps, will rebut in some of our team's case. Now to my points. Firstly, the risk of disruption and division. Universities are meant to be a space of learning, safety, and inclusion. However, when they start to host controversial artists during a time of genocide, they don't create unity. They create dangerous division. Hosting infected mushroom in a space like a university risks sparking protests, counter-protests, and an unsafe environment for students who come on campus simply to study, socialize, and feel included. This scenario is not far-stretched. We've seen situations like this happen in Australia just this year. The University of Sydney and Monash University experienced heated protests that were linked to the Israel-Palestine war. Student-led demonstration attracted hundreds of people to the point where security and police needed to intervene for safety. If protests of that scale occurred just because of political expression, just imagine the reaction in Adelaide if infected mushrooms were to perform at UniBar in the middle of the Gaza conflict. Not because of the doer's nationality, but because of the timing and context. Hosting infected mushrooms during an act of war and what it symbolizes is what creates the danger. When protests like this reach campus, they don't disappear after the event. They create ongoing division which can leave some students feeling unsafe or even silenced. A concept that lasts a few hours is not worth weeks of disruption, reputational damage, and long-lasting division on campus. This brings me to my second point: precedent and policy. Universities in Australia don't make independent decisions. Every choice they make sets a precedent, a standard or norm for how similar cases should be treated in the future. If UniBar Adelaide allowed infected mushroom to perform, it would have set a precedent that the university is willing to ignore the importance of trust and belonging within the school environment. For entertainment, we've already seen universities introduce new policies to reduce conflict linked to the Israel-Palestine crisis. For example, the Group of 8, Australia's top research universities, have heavily tightened their restrictions on campus protests in the past year. At the University of Melbourne, more than 300 students and staff rallied despite these new restrictions, showing just how real and disruptions tensions are. If leading universities are recognizing these risks and acting to prevent escalation, then UniBar Adelaide has a responsibility to be consistent. Allowing infected mushrooms to perform would create an expectation and go against the very precedent that other universities have already established. The reality is, if Sydney and Monash are adjusting their policies to keep campuses safe and neutral, Adelaide cannot justify taking the opposite path. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, UniBar cancelling infected mushroom was never about music, never about nationality, and never about silencing anyone. It's about timing, context, and responsibility. When a university chooses to host artists such as infected mushroom during active war, it doesn't bring students together, it tears them apart. In Australia, it's about whether a university should be safe, inclusive, or neutral. Allowing infected mushroom to perform simply is not. Thank you.
call upon the third affirmative speaker, Ilsa Whittle.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that UniBar Adelaide should have allowed infected mushroom to perform, in which we, the affirmative team, wholeheartedly agree with this statement. I will now rebut the flaws in my opposition's arguments. The first negative speaker has tried to claim that community safety justified cancelling the infected mushroom performance. However, this flawed argument is actually misleading because cancellation is not the only way to ensure safety. Venues have a duty of care to implement proper risk management strategies, such as crowd control barriers, increased security staff, and on-site medical personnel, rather than removing cultural opportunities altogether. According to the Event Safety Alliance Australia, international electronic acts can be staged within structured planning and collaboration with local authorities. By cancelling the event outright, UniBar undermined its capacity to provide safe entertainment experiences and shifted the responsibility onto other venues without solving the broader safety concerns. In fact, safe, controlled campus events help educate students about responsible attendance, whereas pushing these performances off campus risks less regulated environments, thus proving cancellation was not a proportionate response to safety, and mitigation strategies should have been prioritised to protect both safety and culture. Therefore, UniBar Adelaide should have allowed infected mushroom to perform. The first speaker has also claimed that UniBar's reputation would have been harmed by allowing them to perform. However, this argument is fundamentally flawed as it overlooks the reputational harm already caused by the cancellation itself. Adelaide is known as a festival city, and its international reputation depends on welcoming worldwide bands. According to an article written in 2024 by Tourism SA, Adelaide's cultural economy relies on diversity and inclusivity acts, particularly electronic and experimental music. As our first speaker has already highlighted, by cancelling Infected Mushroom, a globally recognised band, the university risks harming Adelaide's credibility, a place where music thrives. Furthermore, other artists with different political stances may hesitate to book UniBar in the future, fearing sudden cancellations. By cancelling Infested Mushroom, UniBar has made itself appear less reliable as a venue partner. Reputation is not about avoiding risk, but also about delivering on promises to audiences and artists. Hosting the concert successfully would have further strengthened Adelaide's cultural reputation rather than undermining it. Cancellation instead made UniBar look untrustworthy. Therefore, UniBar Adelaide should have allowed Infected Mushroom to perform. The second speaker has claimed that cancelling the event helped prevent division of community, such as protest or safety incidents. However, this is a misleading argument because the cancellation itself has already created backlash. According to the Advertiser, hundreds of fans expressed outrage and frustration online, with some staging protests outside the UniBar venue. Rather than diffusing tension, the cancellation heightened division and damaged UniBar's standing with both students and the broader music community. Allowing the concert to go ahead with clear rules, heavy security, and transparent communication would have channeled energy into a controlled environment rather than fueling anger. Cancelling sends the message that conflict is resolved by removing opportunities instead of managing them responsibly, not avoidance. Escalation is best prevented through careful planning. By cancelling, UniBar worsened the very tensions it was trying to prevent, turning a manageable situation into a public relations crisis. So, to summarise my team's case, our first speaker explained that this debate is about artistic freedom and that UniBar should remain politically neutral, emphasising that Infected Mushroom had done nothing wrong and should be allowed to perform. Our second speaker highlighted that the event was sold out, which demonstrated strong fan support and significant economic benefits for UniBar and the local community. She also noted that while UniBar is a private venue, with rights, these should be used to promote cultural engagement and inclusivity. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we, the affirmative team, wholeheartedly believe that UniBar Adelaide should have allowed Infected Mushroom to perform. Because if we start cancelling art based on fear or politics, what kind of world are we creating for creativity and freedom? Thank you.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Athokden.
We are committed to fostering a culture where our values are at the heart of everything we do. Ours is a culture where we lift each other up, value diverse experiences and perspectives. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make that clear. Ours is a culture where we lift each other up, value diverse experiences and perspectives. This quote was taken from the University of Adelaide's Culture and Values Statement, which emphasises the importance of these principles. It makes it clear that we can't overlook these values, especially when they matter most. Day in and day out, institutions say they stand for inclusion, respect, and safety, especially during moments of global conflict. But those words only matter when they're followed by action. This debate isn't just whether a band should perform at a UniBar, it's whether a university, a place built on learning, equality, and community, should host an act that could compromise the environment during a time of humanitarian crisis. I'll now highlight the flaws in the opposition's case. The first speaker wants to say that music should not be political, but the world shows otherwise. It's like waving a flag. It might look like a piece of cloth, but everyone knows it carries meaning. In the same way, giving infected mushrooms a stage during this conflict would be read as a political choice, whether intended or not. The first speaker from the affirmative team has also stated that infected mushrooms should be able to express themselves freely. But in Australia, freedom of speech is not an unlimited personal right. It's not even explicitly protected by the Constitution Bill of Rights. Instead, it exists only as an implied right of political communication, and that mainly restricts government interference. Venues like UniBar are not bound to provide a stage for every voice. Free speech doesn't guarantee a platform. UniBar's choice to cancel wasn't censorship. It was a responsible use of discretion to protect safety and inclusivity in a higher charged moment. The second speaker said that cancelling a show would waste resources and disappoint fans, but popularity doesn't override responsibility. Our first speaker, Ball, has already spoken about the ripple effect and how one gig doesn't stay local but feeds into a global pattern of normalisation, and how UniBar's decision prevented that harm. Our second speaker, Awel, has also added that allowing the show to go ahead would have risked serious disruption and division on a campus, making the space unsafe and unwelcoming for many. Together, these arguments show that ticket sales and entertainment cannot outweigh the responsibility of a university-affiliated venue to protect its students, its community, and its reputation. The second speaker has also mentioned that this starts dangerous facade. It is not about whoever shouts the loudest. It is not about community raising genuine concerns about human rights and a venue responding responsibly. Public pressure is part of a democracy. It's how people hold institutions accountable. UniBar acted in the interest of staff, patrons, and community safety. That's not a mob rule. That's risk management and respecting the values of the community it serves. The third speaker from the affirmative team has also stated that cancellations hurt not just the artists, but staff and promoters. However, money can't be the only measure. If venues keep shows just for cash, then they're basically saying profit is more important than ethics or safety. That's not a good look for the UniBar or Adelaide.
The idea that one cancelled gig will sink the local economy is overblown. Adelaide's hospitality and events industry is bigger than a single act. Missing one show won't ruin it. Also, if you see the rest of UniBar's program, they are pretty much booked out for the rest of the year. Hardly seems like a crunch in their profit margin. Our first speaker board discussed the ripple effect of hosting infected mushrooms and the shared responsibility of the UniBar. She highlighted how this decision prioritized student safety and inclusivity during a politically sensitive time. Our second speaker explained the risks of distribution and division on campus and stressed the importance of standard and consistent policy. She highlighted how allowing this performance could create long-lasting conflicts and unsafe conditions for students. In conclusion, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, UniBar Adelaide, backed by the university's name and community, made the right call in cancelling the performance of infected mushrooms. Hosting the act during an active international conflict would have risked sparking division, protests, and fear on campus. At a time when many students were already affected by conflict, that performance could have made members of the community feel unsafe, marginalized, or ignored. Universities exist to protect their communities, not to provoke division, and UniBar did just that. Thank you.